All right, hi. Let's see, it's 7 o'clock here on the East Coast on a Sunday evening. So I wanted to do a quick post here to do three things. One, to go over the present value and net present value assignment very quickly, to review both the how to manage risk that we talked about this past week, and how to manage and preserve your wealth that we're going to be talking about this coming week. And then thirdly, to talk a little bit about the case study, Terry Ann Lunt and the Greater Boston Rehabilitation Services Agency. Okay, first off, the present value and net present value assignment. I'm doing this in part because some of you had problems with it. So I wanted just to go over very briefly the simple way to lay out the problem, because where people had problems, if you had a problem, it was really with how you laid out the problem. And so I want to make sure that you understand how to structure your thinking and how to structure the data in order to establish the present value of future net flows of money in and out of your organization, and lastly, the sum of those present value net flows, which is the net present value at the end. So in this particular case, right, we had a word problem which asks us whether the hospital would make money or lose money if it built a new surgery facility. And we know a couple of things about the cost of that facility and the expected revenue from it, right? And so we hear that it's going to take 2 years to actually build the building, and they're going to spend $300,000 in the first year and $300,000 in the second year, right? So those are both outflows. We also know then that when they start to operate in the surgery facility, that they're going to rent some equipment for 5 years, after which they're going to own it outright. And that each year they're going to have to spend $50,000 on the new equipment. And so they wouldn't start paying for the equipment before they're actually going to use it. So I have it here that they start paying out the money in the third year, and for 5 years thereafter takes you to the seventh year, when they will be putting out the $50,000. Okay? So those are the outflows that you can assume are going to happen in the first couple of years of this project. And so you have years of the project, and then here you have outflow, and then you have inflow of money. Now we know from the case study that they're going to be able to do one extra surgery per day. And so whether that amount is the $1,000 or the corrected $2,000, whether that's offset or increased by the $200 that was required of the extra cost of doing the surgeries. I didn't really worry about that in your assignment, but the point being is that you cannot attribute all of the revenue from both surgeries to having the new facility, because we know in the case study that they were doing one surgery anyway. They're building the facility only allows them to marginally increase their revenue by the one surgery per day. Okay, so you can't count the revenue from both surgeries, only the one surgery, and that is, established here a little bit. And so, that goes for the next 10 years that the facility, that is the lifetime of the facility. And you don't start the clock on the lifetime of the facility until the facility is actually in operation. So that's why actually the lifetime of the revenues starts in year 3 when they're operational and goes through year 12. Okay? So when you have then the outflow and the inflow, you get a net cash flow, and then you multiply that by the discount, right? Now, some of you discounted from the very first year, but that doesn't make sense, right? Because in the first year, you've got the 300,000, you're spending it, but it's not like it's a year later, right? It's the present, so you don't discount it by any amount, right? So it's only in the second year that you start to discount the value of the net money, and you discount it by the 6%, which was given in the problem, right? So in the first year, then, right, you have $300,000 going out. The present value of that is the 300,000 because you haven't discounted it at all. And then in each subsequent year, you're discounting the net cash flow, either in or out, by the discount rate, which continues to get smaller and smaller here as you get into the out years. And so this number, each year you get a present value of the net either inflow or outflow of money. Okay? But the net present value then is the sum of all of these numbers here. The present value of each year's net inflow or outflow of dollars, right? So this total down here is what the net present value is. And if that number is positive, then the project makes money. If it's 0 and all the sum of these gets to 0, it means the project is financially neutral. You don't make money, you don't lose money. And if the number is negative, it means that the project actually has lost money over time. Okay? So if you have any questions on that, just give a call. Okay? All right. So quickly, the second thing I wanted to cover was some of the principles that have to do with managing risk and preserving wealth. And I am grouping them together because essentially they're the flip side of the same coin. Essentially, to manage risk and to preserve wealth, you essentially want to make sure that you are making educated guesses about the future, right? Whether that's when you take a risk to borrow money or to, normally it's borrowing money, but take a risk in terms of your financial decisions, or whether it is taking somewhat of a risk, right, in terms of what you invest your money in order to grow and preserve your wealth. You always want to make an educated guess. Future returns are not guaranteed by past performance. You've heard that disclaimer on all these investment advertisements. But the point here is simply that whether you borrow or whether you invest, you don't know what the future is, so there's always some risk involved, but you want to make sure that you are knowledgeable about the risk that you are taking. And so that you want to know the amount of risk you're taking, and with that in mind, you want to make sure that you don't bet the ranch if you don't have to. And what do I mean by that? It means that what happens if your investment decision goes south, or if your loan or your debt decisions go south. You don't want to make the bet so big that if it goes south, you're in financial peril. You always want to make sure. And Unless, of course, if you're on the brink anyway and you go for broke, well, maybe you have to take that sort of risk. But you never want to place the bet that if you lose it, you're going to put your organization in financial jeopardy. Okay. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit was the Terry Ann Lunt case study. And as I say in the lecture, the official lecture, we're at the point of the course where most of the fundamentals of sound financial management have been discussed. And what we really want to try to do in the last couple of weeks is hone our understanding of how to apply those learnings or those understandings to actual case studies, simulated real life cases. And in this particular case, I really like this case study, part 1 and part 2, because there are clearly some things that are very wrong with this organization. It may seem like there are so many things that are wrong. How could Terry Ann Lunt, the new exec director, do anything that would make it better? But that's why I like the case study, because she does some great stuff in part 2 to address some of the issues that we'll identify in part 1. So think about the different things we've talked about in the course so far, right? The financial structure, the budgeting, some of the risk management, and wealth preservation, and see how those apply to the problems, or see if you can see deficiencies in those areas in the problems that GBRS is having. Okay? And we'll get a chance in discussion forum 2 this week to hash some of those problems out. Okay? Sorry if that ran a little long. As always, you can give a call, 413-237-7475, and I look forward to seeing you online.